Okay, I'm just gonna start recording this video straight away. Yeah, I think if you watched the first episode, you have the gist of what this is about, and if you didn't watch the first episode, like, why are you watching the second one? Like, go back and watch that first. Seriously. Who do you think you are? Okay, so anyway, I'm not at any tables yet, but I thought that I could. I mean, there's so many tables going on stars at these stakes that I can basically jump straight in. Uh, the players at these tables are. They're fairly. These stars 2-4 tables are pretty tough. Yeah, as you can see, I'm having a good month so far. Uh, yeah. I'm just firing up the Hold'em manager. Anyway, I don't know if you watched my last series, but I played quite a bit on these 2-4 stars games. You might be familiar with one or two of the players. I know that Broseph has featured in plenty of videos, as has Donk Predator, I believe. I've played with Under Oath before. Yeah, basically these games are just regulars. I'm surprised people who aren't me play them. Like I don't know how they make money. They seem pretty tough. Pretty tough, but that'll hopefully make for some great great video watching. So I'm at a couple tables now, and we're ready to go. One funny kind of thing is that Donk Predator. Someone just told me that he's doing a prop bet where he has to win something like 100 buy-ins in a month at 2-4 or something like that, and there's a bunch of action on it. Oh, he's sitting out on my table. Well, that's oh, he's sitting out on all the tables. Fair enough. So hopefully these games don't break, because I'll have spent the first 2 minutes talking about basically nothing if that happens. I don't know who this Masiek guy is. His location is Donkland. Not really revealing too much about his character. Yeah. Get down and go from Akron. Where's Akron? I'm not familiar with Get Down and Go either, but he's probably a reasonable regular. As you can see, I'm reading about some stock stuff. Get Down and Go. Yeah. Probably for the best that it was that sort of stuff that I was reading about and not something else. Get Down and Go. Okay, he's on poker table ratings. And he's also from the location Akron. That is in Ohio. Means nothing to me. Know nothing about poker players from Ohio. What can you really say about Ohio? I've never been there myself. Get Down and Go. Wow, he's winning. Oh, but his BB per 100's small. Okay, so he looks like a huge grinder. He might be doing Supernova or something. He's played a lot of hands. Here with the call, I think you could make an argument for actually folding Ace 10, 10, 2 to a re-raise from a regular, but I'm gonna call. I want a better read on the player before I do stuff like that typically, but I just feel like playing hands. I don't really have a great explanation. It'll make the video better if I play a bit looser, and calling is by no means bad there. I think, it's pretty normal to call. Okay, so he's up 136k at 510 PLO shorthanded. So he's pretty good. Pretty good grinding abilities. Yeah, he's killing it. What's he losing at? 2550. Okay, so he's unlucky and making lots of money. So I'm gonna put a taggy sort of note on this guy now. I've got red as a good note. He can get degraded to orange if I start seeing him do some donkey sort of stuff. This is gonna be funny now if I label Broseph orange. Yeah, I just have a better read on Broseph, so I'm gonna put him as orange and just kind of go from there. This Masiek guy, don't have a great read on him at this point. Obviously, table ratings is evil, but I have to use it. He's a huge grinder. 570,000 hands. Wow, these guys play a lot of hands. These Stars games are ridiculous. Here on the flop, after get down and go, calls out of position. You know, I'm just gonna ship it in. Unless someone has kings, I'm in good shape. I also think I can fold out a hand like ace king 10 like fairly frequently. I'm really representing aces here, so get down go can certainly fold the winning hand in this hand. I'm a favorite against this hand, so that's pretty good. And we suck out, so that's always nice. Masiak 507. Man, I don't even know how you play that many hands. That is a lot of hand. 2-4. And he's played 152,000 at 1-2. Okay, so he's a serious grinder. I don't really, we'll call that orange as well. He's just kind of like, actually, I'm gonna create a new color thing. We'll just call hardcore grinders yellow. Super grinder. Okay, so I have a pretty good read on. I mean, I know that took 5 minutes of this video to just basically go over what I know about the players from what I can find on the interbots, but you know, that's like so worth it. And now like all my play is going to be informed by like my reads on these three players post flop. Here on the top table, he re-raises me out of position from the big blind. I put him on a very strong hand here, and you know, he only bet half pot, so I'm going to call, but I could definitely see just folding the flop there. I think he has aces a lot. I also think he has like queen 10 or queen ace jack or something a lot. But I mean, I called because, you know, I'm getting 2-1 or whatever. Sorry, he bet half the pot, so I'm getting much better than 2-1. Hopefully he'll just let us check it down, and we'll get to showdown and kind of get to see what he re-raised us with. Maybe a hand like 4-5-6-8 double suited that he's now thinking about the river with, or he could also just have a hand like Jack 9 that decided to check the turn. Whatever the case, I don't really think I can call now. It's just too that's just not going to work out too well. Bushwick Dave. Search poker player ranking. It's great how you can just Google the person on table ratings now rather than actually logging into table ratings and do all that. Okay, so he's like these 2-4 players play a lot. Oh, he's not a. Oh, he plays 25-50. I'm not really familiar with him at those stakes though. But I'm gonna put a red one on him. He's won like a lot of money at 25-50. So we'll proceed with caution. Yeah. Okay. So over these three tables, I'm gonna try to get a better read on Michael D18 pretty quickly. Caprioli, I think I've played with in the past, and I remember him kind of being a little loose passive. It may have been someone else. It's kind of hard when people don't have pictures, but yeah. He probably seems to be sort of loose passive in my experience. Obviously opening the ace king 3 under the gun, or under the gun +1. I mean, if I got re-raised there, I would 4-bet most players with that hand. Pretty much everyone, I think. I'd need an amazing read to not 4-bet that hand. On this right table, I don't know who Smurfy is. I'm not familiar with him, which probably means he's not amazing. Certainly not a high volume player like a lot of these guys. So really hoping to just get a few more hands on people. Masiak could actually be like a huge lag guy. like very aggressive. I don't know at this point. I'm gonna hope to find a hand history or two where I can get some more information on his play, but for now, not really too sure. Yeah, here on the flop, you could lead there actually. That wouldn't be terrible. I wouldn't typically do that. I feel like you're not really getting a lot out of it. And you could also check raise all in here, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Check raising all in here would be fine. It just wouldn't necessarily be the best possible play. Yeah, I feel like if I do check shove here, I don't have, I don't think I have a lot of folding equity. And although I think check shoving is certainly better than check folding, like obviously, I think I can do better than that just by check calling the flop. And I'm going to check call the turn as well. I've got the straight flush draw going on, and obviously a 10 or a jack is like almost always going to be the best hand. So I'm just going to call again, and then I'm just going to check fold on the river if he bets. I will consider a call, but I just don't really feel like... I mean, he shoved very quickly. He re-raised me in position. Like, my hand could definitely be good here. If on beat, it's by aces, or... I don't think he has jack 9, obviously. And I don't think he re-raises too many pairs of kings. He could have a hand like king 10. But he could also certainly have just like ace 3 of spades, or something like that. I am getting a very good price. And if he had a hand like... He bet very large on the turn. That was Cowpig. Getting me sick. This is quite a tricky spot on the river. I really feel like I could be good here against a draw like ace 3 of spades, queen 10. Yeah, this is tough. If I lose, it's to aces. He shoved super fast. I'm going to call. I mean, I don't need to be good very often here. I'm going to lose a lot, but... Okay, so he had the ace, ace, 5, 6. That's, it's reasonable. Trying to think of, like... Obviously, if we had check raised the flop there, he would have folded, by the way. But that's, it doesn't really matter too much. I don't think that it really affects things much. I'm thinking about whether or not shoving the turn would have just been best. I don't mind our play though. I feel like we allow ourselves to make a decent river decision by just calling the turn, snapping him off when we think he's bluffing and folding when he's not. I mean, obviously we didn't do that this time, but it did give us a little more options than just going without equity on the turn against a draw, which is obviously never folding and has, 45% equity or something. But maybe a small mistake there. We'll see. As far as Masiak's play in that hand, seems fine. Maybe what I should have considered, like psychologically, we're kind of talking about that in this series a bit more. But since he's playing a lot of tables and he is like a really serious grinder, maybe I should have just folded just like because he's on 10 tables and he shoved really fast. That doesn't seem like something that you would do as a bluff if you're 10 tabling and you're like not a super aggressive player. But he has been playing aggressively since I sat down at the table. So who knows? We'll never know if that was good or bad or, somewhere in between. But I really have no problem with the play up to that point. The river call was based on two things. The range that I put him on when he bets the flop, he was actually very like aggressive on the turn there, which is fine. Like I think potting the turn is the correct play, but some people check there, which isn't something I really support. I don't think that's a good play. So he was aggressive on the turn. And also, I guess he hit the 5, which kind of confused us a bit because he insta-shoved. he might have thought for half a second with aces. But basically, he either has aces or like a big draw, like a rundown. And if he has a rundown, the only hand that really beats us that is a rundown is like Jack 9. And Jack 9 obviously isn't like insta-shoving the river, certainly, but probably not even betting the river. It's rare that people re-raise you with pairs of queens or kings, so his real range is kind of like nuts or nothing. And, you know, we do fine against that. We're also paying, you know, we need to be good less than a quarter of the time, maybe 20% of the time or something. So, all in all, like, the math kind of says that calling is fine there. Like, it's never going to be a large mistake just to pay off on the river. There's also plenty of hands that we can have, like combo draws, that will fold the river against him. So if he does have the ace, queen, 10 of spades there, it's certainly, like, I think that would be a good situation to bluff. We could easily have a hand like queen 10 of clubs, you know, that check hold the flop, check hold the turn, and now just gives up, like ace queen 10 with clubs, or just, you know, 9 10 queen or something like that, you know. Yeah, Masiak now deciding what to do on the button. One thing I'm really interested in finding out about these various regulars as this session progresses is how aggressively they'll steal from the cutoff and button. And I talked about that quite a lot in the pre-gaming series we did earlier. But, like, because these people are playing so many tables, that's one of the main edges you have against people like that. You don't really get a lot of edge. Basically, since people tend to play very technically and autopilot-y, you really just want to work out what their strategy in terms of blind stealing is and blind defense is, and then work out a strategy that like dominates that for each individual player, because they aren't going to adapt to your strategy like as the match goes on, as the play goes on. They're just going to stick to whatever they're doing for at least the whole session, and maybe just forever. Like for a month, they'll keep playing the big blind against the button in exactly the same way against you. So I think it's really important to work out, you know, I guess to give you an example, if someone's opening 80% on the button and playing 12 tables, that person's going to be completely different than someone opening 30% on the button and playing 8 tables. And that's going to be one of your main edges against someone playing that many tables, because people like that typically are fairly solid. They're playing a typical, like, quite a solid strategy post-flop. They're not going to be running too many crazy plays. So you really have to make your own, just kind of playing in an even, like, a more technical kind of manner, finding out which little leaks they have, and then just exploiting them every time they come up. Yeah. So here, top mission 94. Not really familiar with his play. German short stack. Probably worth table ratings, a German short stack. I mean, he could easily be like a pro short stacker. I'm looking him up now. And he's limped, which makes that less likely. He's also losing over 3,000 hands. So that doesn't say too much about it. He's down most of it at... He's down 3.3k at 1 cent, 2 cent PLO? What? That can't be right. Oh, he's down at 1, 2, and 1 cent, 2 cent. Okay, so he seems to be a fairly recreational player. He also limped. So, you know, that's... If you're watching, guy, I'm sorry, but you get a green label for now. And we'll see if you play better as the session progresses. Here I'm getting pretty good pot odds. I'm not really too afraid of anyone involved in this pot. So I'm just gonna call and see what happens, see what develops. Here on the flop, you could check this flop, that would be totally fine. I tend to err on the side of betting in most situations where you could check or bet. I kind of just like winning the pot, getting a hand like 9 ace king to fold, just not getting sucked out on, you know. I mean, my hand's not really vulnerable here, but I'm still going to have trouble on a lot of turn cards. When Brucev calls me on the flop here, I put him on a pretty strong hand. I think it's quite likely he's got a hand like queens. people love to call in position with hands like queens, and I also think Jack 10 is fairly likely. The other, I'm going to check, and the other reason for checking is that if he has a hand that I'm actually good against, he's just not going to bet it. Like, he's not going to suddenly start bluffing with ace queen 10, I think. I mean, I'm not even sure that he would peel that, but if he had that hand, I don't think he would just start bluffing on the turn. That seems like, I don't know, just a pretty weird play. Most people would just check and go to the river and realize their equity, especially when the stack sizes look like I could kind of check raise him. So at this point, I kind of put him on like queens or jack 10. That's my main read. Those seem like the most likely hands. He could also have queen jack jack or jack jack 9, but combinatorially, I have a lot of those cards. It just doesn't seem too likely that he has those hands. Here, pretty loose call against an early position open. I think you should probably be folding this hand, but it doesn't really matter. It's not that important to fold it or call it. And I'm going to call it so the session's more interesting, but the flop play there, very standard. Your hand's kind of just forced. Like, what else are you going to do on the flop? You've just got to check call here. If he bets again, I'm going to check call. He could be bluffing to make me fold a flush draw or something, like semi-bluffing with a flush draw. And obviously, I've also got, 9, I've got plenty of outs versus ace-king or ace-queen. I'd have 12 outs versus that hand. 13 outs. So, that seems to be playing out well. I expect to see ace-queen here. He checked really fast on the river. I would have thought he would at least think about it with ace-king, and, okay, he's got queen, jack, 10, king. So I'm gonna make him a bit more. I'm gonna make him red. So it's like I don't know if you've noticed, but I think it's really important to just take notes. You don't even have to look at them like after a session or in another session. Like, even if your notes were deleted as soon as you finished your session, that wouldn't really matter too much. Like, just the process of taking notes is like you're learning as you do it. You're forcing yourself to like stay engaged in what's happening at the table. So, like I said, these stars games are pretty tough. Broseph calling in position here with deep stacks. So I'm thinking about the sort of ranges of hands he's got here, and it looks like I'd say hands like Jack Jack 10x, suited ace style hands, pocket queens, that sort of thing. He's not a super aggressive 3-better in my experience. But plays fairly well post flop. Get down, Joe. Okay, so this is an important hand because I would normally c-bet on the cutoff. This is one of those situations where, basically, like, those initial flop plays, like c-betting and not c-betting, that's basically the same as pre-flop. And like I was saying, with the people that are playing, like, a ton of tables, if you're playing, a million tables, how you like what flops you check fold and don't check fold that's gonna be super important, because that's gonna be a fairly unbalanced range for most people who are playing a ton of tables. It's kind of hard to adapt doing that. Here, Top Mission's re-raised us. We're basically just going to get it all in on any flop. I think I'll just shove pre-flop. I can't see a flop I'll actually fold. I guess I can flop, I guess I can fold on trips, if the flop was trips. But it's going to just be more convenient to shove, so let's just do that. And the reason we're getting it in here is obviously just against any range of hands, we've got the 35% equity we need, or whatever. Maybe 36%. Obviously against this specific holding, we're a favorite. and it looks like we're going to hold, so that's nice. Yeah, not really sure what, like, he's obviously not a professional short stacker, that play would just make no sense. Yeah, but I think he just wanted to put the money in and, you know, do some gambling. He's bought in for a different amount, so obviously a recreational player there. Good person to have to your left, really. Masiek hasn't really given us too much else to go on here. He's playing in a he has been playing like fairly aggressively pre-flop with his 3-betting and very tag, so you know, I think he's probably a fairly good player in terms of solidness, but we'll see how he plays larger pots as the session goes on. He does seem to be playing fairly he's fairly tight from the button and cutoff. Steel button, steel cutoff, yeah. So, that first stat, by the way, for people who haven't paid attention in past videos, is I like the steel cutoff, steel button, and then 3-bet versus steel. I feel like those stats are basically the same as VPIP, PFR, 3-bet. Like, they inform your play basically every hand you're in one of those spots. For example, right now with his 40% cutoff open, well, it's gone down to 33. But say his 30% button open, right? That's obviously not the real number, but against someone opening 30% on the button, obviously I'm going to be playing a lot more snug from the small blind in terms of 3-betting. I might still play like fairly loose, just because, not like super loose obviously, but he's got a more defined hand range, so I'm gonna make less mistakes post flop, but I obviously can't just be 3-betting him every hand unless I pick something else up about his play. That would be something like he folds too much to 3-bets. Obviously, if he was folding to 3-bets like 25% of the time, I mean, like if he was folding the top 25% of hands to 3-bets, I would be 3-betting him like a lot, but you know, that's probably not the case. It's more likely that he would give up post-flop too much, but that's kind of a really hard thing to notice about someone over a small sample size. Here, Smurfy's limped under the gun. So far he's been playing very loose, and he's just limped, and he's got a picture of Tiger Woods. That looks just like a recreational player to me. I'm just going to check here, there's no value in betting. He checked behind really fast, I'm just going to min bet as a blocking bet. Take it down, maybe some small value versus a hand like 6s with spades or something. But mostly just like, he's going to check if I check. I might as well just min bet. Bushwick raises in early position here. Playing fairly snug so far. Pre-flop, he did make some aggressive play earlier post-flop. I'm just looking to see if he's shown down any hands, because I want to see if he, want to get a, like if I had seen, you don't need that many hands on someone if you see them open like King 10 suited, Ace 3 off under the gun. Like, that's telling. That tells you that they're probably opening like 35% under the gun. I'm still going to repop it with this hand. It plays very well versus a tight range and a loose range. You know, if he has aces, we just get to gamble it up, and I'm okay with that. I would obviously like this a lot more if I had a suit, but I don't know. I think it's going to play out just fine if I flop a boat, like so. You know, just going to bet 3/4 of the pot. And he folds pretty fast. I would have bet that flop, typically, if I missed or didn't miss. I'd probably be betting that flop with the majority of my range. Occasionally I would check air or aces there, but usually I'm just going to bet that sort of hand. Here we've got another hand against Masiek from Donkland. Folds the small blind. and Bushwick Dave. One thing to look at is people's BB stats. They also vary quite a lot, which should inform your how frequently you steal the button. Obviously, if someone's BB stat is like, you know, Masiak's so far is 27, but Brosif's is 10. So I mean, that's if that was over 10,000 hands, you know, you're obviously going to be stealing one of them's button more. I'll let you guess whose that would be. You'd be stealing one of their blinds more often. So that blind stealing based on their BB percentage is really like a math kind of logic thing. Like if you're opening to 3 BB and they're playing the big blind like 20% of the time, obviously you can just be raising with basically anything. If they're playing like 50% of the time, well, now you should be playing a lot tighter, obviously. To look at that from a different perspective, you might say, oh, someone's not a very tough player in the big blind, like they don't really check raise aggressively or donk bet, or, you know, just make life difficult for you. So you might be like, oh, I can raise the button more aggressively even though they are tight. Like, they're going to give up a lot post-flop. They're just going to call the big blind and then they're going to give up. So that's just as good, basically. So you really want to have both that percentage read on how loose they're playing, but also have a pretty good idea on how they're going to respond post-flop to what you do. For example, if Bushwick Dave raised here, and I'm in the big blind, how he plays post-flop really changes what I should do with the Ace-King 10-5. I mean, I would call this anyway, against basically everyone. I just think pot odds plus big hand against loose range, you know? That's good enough for me. Against a min-raise, I'm just not really folding, especially versus someone who's, you know, probably a recreational player. But if my hand was a bit worse than this Ace-King 10-5, I would certainly want to know how they played post-flop, like, he min-raises. I'm going to re-raise him. We don't have any button, small blind, big blind history, and I would expect that, you know, since we have no history, if he had a big hand, the first time he min-raised, he would do it with a real hand. No, sorry, the first time he raised the small blind, he would probably do it with a good hand. Because he doesn't know how I think about his play. The real Quaid. He re-raises. Okay, here is a, I talked about this in the last video, and, you know, this is kind of an undefendable hand. Probably shouldn't even be raising it in the first place, but I talked about this in the last video where if someone's going to be playing fairly, like a lot of tables, and I min-raise the small blind, I don't really want to be giving up to them in that situation. I want them to think like, oh, I'm going to have to play a pot with Alexei Martov if I re-raise with my junk hand, because he just doesn't fold to re-raises in this particular spot. And then he'll just stop doing it, and I can end up with the best situation. Here on the turn, this is actually a really tricky spot. I mean, I think he probably has 9-10, but I've got the blocker and 2-pair. I probably am going to fold, because in like my range is pretty strong. I could easily have 4-5, 2-pair, flush draw, whatever. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Like his play there, he's representing a really strong hand. So I'm just going to give up. So that small blind, big blind situation against multi-tabling regulars is like, it's pretty important to think about that sort of thing. I'm not saying like min-raise a lot of small blinds and never fold to 3-bets. That's probably going to lose you more money than you make, especially initially. But the logic and the thought process is that like you're getting inside the other person's head and really thinking about how they perceive your play. Like it's just probably going to seem like too much effort to 3-bet me every time if he's going to have to be playing these like really tricky pots against me post-flop. Here it's the button min-raises. Like I don't really fold to min-raises pre-flop. I think that's kind of, I don't know, weak, especially not with a hand like this. But so in this kind of situation, right, like I'm not planning to make a play at this flop, but what I was talking about was, I mean, I could totally check raise here versus him. I'm threatening his whole stack. I might do that anyway. I just think that's kind of a weak raise. So I figure that I'm winning with my check raise here half the time. I'm paying 27 to win 26. I think it's going to work like 60% of the time, at least. I mean, because it worked. Results. So that's a combination of the math. Like, okay, I'm paying 26 to win, 27 to win 26. It's got to work a little over half the time, and then the player, he's a recreational player. He hasn't played with me before. He's certainly not just gonna shove with ace 10 queen there. He's gonna have to have a hand to continue. Now against his range, I just don't think that he has a hand that often. And here against the real Cade, I'm not sure how he wants that pronounced. I do the min raise thing again, and he didn't 3-bet my min raise. I'm gonna put on Masiak. He's there we go. Anyway, he raises this flop though. This is a pretty good flop for him to be bluff raising, so I'm certainly considering a move in this. Well, not a move, but just continuing and seeing how things develop. I've also got double gut shots to the nut kind of hands. So I think I'm going to call and see what happens, see what develops. He could easily be bluff raising, and I've got pot odds. I don't know where else to go from there with that one. If he has 6-5, I've got a fair bit of equity. I don't know what he'll do on the turn with that. He could kind of go either way, between checking and betting. Now I'm obviously going to fold. Yeah. Fairly thin peel on the flop, by the way. But not too bad. 2 to 1. Here, I'm just going to muck the ace-8, 3-5 on the cutoff. I don't really think that's a very strong hand, and the button is strong. The blinds, at least one of them's strong. I'm not too familiar with Hamster. At least one of them's a strong player. Even if he is tight, like, that works in your favor, but between having a reasonably aggressive button who's got a lot of high-stakes experience and a good big blind, you just don't really want to be playing too aggressively from the cutoff. Here, this obviously isn't a great hand, but I'm paying $8 to win the $6 in the blinds. Top mission, he's probably 3-betting a bit too much to make this play good, but so it goes. But I figured there's just a pretty good chance that I min-raise, top mission calls with anything, Broseph occasionally folds, and we're in an okay situation against a weak player. I think top mission here probably just well, he could have anything, but I think aces would make a lot of sense. I also think a hand like 9-10 queen would make a lot of sense. Either way, I think checking is the best play. And here it just goes check, 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 but I'm just going to check. Okay, so he re-raised me with the ace 9, 8, 8, which turned out to be a good play versus my range with his stack, but pretty, well, I don't mind his play. His play was okay in that hand against me. So maybe I'll be playing a little more snug from the button when he's the small blind. I'm also watching how, like, Bushwick Dave, or just anyone at the tables that I'm at, plays various hands in various positions. Here, Papa Ruck opens. I don't have any stats on him. If he was super, super loose in the cutoff, I might consider calling here. Like, sort of 60-70% cutoff open. But against a typical, like, against a random player, especially a fearsome PokerStars pro from Amsterdam, I definitely wouldn't typically call versus someone from Amsterdam. Like I said last video, they tend to be pretty reasonable players. And obviously, he just doesn't seem to be someone that's going to be opening 70% on the cutoff. So I think folding the 10-10 jack there is fine, and folding queens there is probably fine if you don't have anything else, like queen, queen, 7 deuce or something. You can probably muck that there. Here, pretty loose open, but you've got to look at what I was just saying. Like, they're both very tight in the blinds. Well, they're just both very tight so far. I mean, I've got 10 hands on them, but I'm just going to assume that they're probably both playing like something like 27-11 at the worst. That would be my like worst case scenario. And against those kind of against tight blinds, you know, you can open up a little bit on the button. Here I pot out, you know, against someone shoving here, you're not actually in very good shape versus their range. You know, they've got like 50-50 or you beat, but obviously against someone playing 96% of hands pre-flop, you know, way ahead of his range. He's shipping it with any ace-x of clubs and basically anything, really. Here against Hanster, we're not going to have to talk about that. Well, I'll still talk about it, but SL limps in the cutoff. I'm just going to pot from the button. I feel like the way Broseph sees my play, like he's going to play fairly aggressively against me when he has a good hand still. Like he's obviously not bad at poker, but I don't think he's going to go out of his way to really get in my face. Which means that a lot of the time, those two blinds are going to get folded, and either 500 SL will fold and I'll pick up the $10 for my original $18 investment, or he'll call with a hand that's probably stands to be worse than mine, given that he's limping the cutoff, and I feel like the way it plays out, that'll just be fine. So, probably a loose passive kind of player. 500 SL. I'm going to check him quickly in table ratings as well. Yeah. Oh, he's a losing player so far. And he's been playing for a little over a year. So, yeah, obviously a recreational player. He's played like a wide variety of stakes. So, I think our original green labeling works. Yeah, and that kind of supports how we played our hand, like isolating a weak player when there's no super aggressive blinds. Seems pretty reasonable to me. Okay, so here Papa Ruck is opening in the cutoff. So far he's opened 50% from the cutoff. Haven't really seen any of those get shown down, so don't have too good a read on how he's playing. Right at this moment. 24, 28. Brosef's range on this board texture is probably fairly active. I'm not going to necessarily say strong, but like because he has a lot of hands like Queen, Queen 9 and just queens in general, pocket jacks in general, like it's quite likely that he continues on this board. That the type of hands that he would fold are hands like Ace 4, 5, 6, that kind of thing. Ace King 10, that kind of hand. So if you had like a hand like 8, 9 here, it might be reasonable if you're Papa Ruck just to check the flop and hope it got checked through, since you're very rarely gonna well, you don't have a ton of folding equity on the flop, and against the classes of hands that you do have folding equity against, you're not really vulnerable. So you're not really giving away much if you check and let them have a freebie. And it works out really great if they check back with a hand that, you know, would definitely have continued to the turn. So far these games have been fairly, I don't know, fairly straightforward, just kind of... I was talking earlier in the session about how a lot of where your value in these types of games come from, it just kind of like basically just having a kind of detached, calm state of mind and just working out little technical plays to maximize value in like spots that occur frequently. Here Broseph checked the turn. I'm not really a fan of that, to be honest. He's also playing fairly loose on the button. Yeah. So the 9755 call, it's defendable. 9975, that's not necessarily a bad call, but it's very active. I fold that hand there sometimes in his seat, and I tend to play pretty loose, so it's okay. On the turn, when he gets checked to by Papa Rock, I would bet there. I think checking is a mistake. The board looks bad, but when you actually break it down, when you break that down, it's just really likely that he has the best hand. I mean, Papa Rock, if he has a straight, checking any straight on the turn there would just be, like, appalling. And it's quite likely that he has a hand like 10 Jack of Hearts, Queen 10, King 7 with the King 10 of Hearts. All these kind of hands can definitely call a turn bet. So you're getting some more money in as a 60-40 favorite. You defend your hand against, like, hands that have maybe 25 to 30% equity. They're now going to fold and instead of getting a free card. Like just 10 Jack, plain 10 Jack, that has 8 outs against you. That's going to fold. 10 Jack of Hearts, that's going to pay. So I don't really see the logic there behind checking, unless you're really sure you're going to get raised on the turn. You're going to get check raised, but I mean, no, like, I think check raising the ace on this turn, if you have a straight, is just a really poor play. I think you should be betting to charge other hands. So I think that was just kind of a weak check on the turn there by Broseph. Not like terrible or anything. You're not making a ton of money checking there. Betting there. But I think that's a slightly better play. Anyway, I think I'm well, we'll go for another 5 minutes and hope we get a really interesting hand because it's been a slow session. But a lot of sessions are slow sessions, and I think it's just, I'm only playing 3 tables right now, and there's plenty of people playing 12 2-4 tables. But within these hands that like occur, you just get into so many little technical spots where it kind of looks simple when I'm playing and explaining things. But like every play I've made in this session has had like a very well thought out reason. Like I'm not autopiloting at all. Everything is based on the players at the table, which probably makes me, quite unique as opposed to the other people at this table. They're playing like 10 tables. I'm playing like 3. It's pretty unlikely that they're basing like their whole pre-flop game on the various players at each individual table. And I think it's like, you can be surprised how much money you can sort of make in those sort of situations. Like, I'm not talking about huge amounts of money, but, going from being a 2BB winner to a 4BB winner is just a ridiculous change. Like, that's a massive... It's more than double because you don't have to deal with... Like, your variance, if you're a 4 PTBB per 100 winner, is just so much lower than if you're a 2 PTBB per 100 winner. So, I mean, that means you tilt less. That makes your real win rate much higher. You're playing way more winning sessions against people, which means that, like, they're playing worse against you. You're tilting less. You're more confident in your game. So, just those little pre-flop spots do add up. See, like, in this situation, I often re-raise the 7, 9, 10 Jack pre-flop. I could probably still do that here, but I'm just calling. He's opening very tight from the button. 36%. That's re-raising would still be okay, but this hand doesn't actually play that well hot and cold post-flop. So I just decided to call here. You could re-raise, and a good reason for re-raising in that spot might be something like, I think that he plays kind of weak post flop, and he's gonna fold the flop when he doesn't hit a good hand. But I don't have that read on the player. Sorry. At this point, here against the real Cade, I'm just gonna fold to the re-raise. That's this hand just doesn't play too well. He's playing pretty snug so far. I will quickly check to see if he's shown down anything that would show that was just variance that was creating the statistics, but I don't remember anything being shown down. Here, Masiak is isolating a weak player, but he's not. I don't think he's doing that with a super wide range. I could actually elect to call here. I wouldn't hate that play, but out of position, I'm just going to fold that hand, which worked out pretty well, actually. I'm not familiar with ace quads play either. Yep. Okay, well I think I'm actually going to play out my blinds here. These tables just haven't really provided too much in the way of excitement, and I always aim to be exciting, if not informative, but hopefully both. And, you know, I still think it's pretty important to be able to play at this type of table sometimes, and especially to have pretty good idea how other people play at these types of tables. Like, it looks like these tables are all just full of regulars, right? But regulars do play, like, drastically differently to each other, like, significantly in how their statistics line up. I mean, if you just look at these 100 hands I have on Brusif, right, like, he has quite a, he's like a very positional player. I don't know if you can see all of the stats on that window. I'll do it on this one. But, you know, over the, 100 hands at this table so far, he's been playing, like, pretty tight out of position and pretty aggressively in position, right? That's, fine. I'm not really trying to say if anything's good or bad, but, kind of on the fence here. I'm going to peel one and see what happens. Brosif's kind of playing like a very positional game, where based on our stats, Masiak's are a bit flatter. He's got 30% EP open, 15% MP, and his blind stats are much higher. So, straight away, those two players, like, are very different pre-flop players. Like, they have a different approach to pre-flop play. It's very easy to think, oh, they're both on 10 tables, but I mean, they're definitely thinking about the game differently, and I think it's just pretty important to be thinking about how they're thinking about it, so that you can eke out that extra BB per 100 or whatever. Here in this hand, not a great flop for my hand, but the Pesjabemv Vas from Beograd. I don't know how to say his name, obviously, but he's got a very wide range, and I think he's probably going to give up if he has a hand like 9, 8, 10. So I got a lot of folding equity versus him. Masiak, bit looser in the blinds, but check raises. I think it's pretty easy fold from there. I expect Masiak either has queens or a hand like, ace-x of hearts, like ace-king 10 with the ace-king of hearts. That would make sense. Or just queen 9, but it would have to be like queen 9, 8, 7 or something for him to play that pre-flop, I expect. Anyway, I'm just going to open this hand because it's the last hand on this table. Not a bad open anyway, but a bit thin. What's this guy's? Okay. So like we saw before, the real K didn't re-raise our min-raise earlier in the session, so we're just gonna keep min-raising it up. There's not really any downside to min-raising it. You're paying $6 to win the $6 that's in there. If you don't get re-raised much, it's pretty clear min-raise. And here, nothing really happened, unfortunately. On this table, a bit slow also. I'm c-betting here, even though this board kind of looks like it hits a lot of hands, but people are still folding a lot of classes of hands. I've kind of stressed this concept a bit in past videos about how to think about PLO hands. Like, think about the classes of hands people are playing instead of, like, just the board, like, oh, that's a fairly connected board and people like to play connected hands. Well, that's true. People also like to play queens, kings, you know, ace king, like ace king 10 3, ace big big small with a suited ace. That's the kind of hands people play a lot of the time. They love rundowns too, but rundowns are pretty unlikely mathematically, and none of those hands even made a pair, like queens, kings, ace king 10, all of those missed. So anything that's not a rundown is going to fold. Even hands like 9 10 jack, which is a rundown, you know, that one might call, but you're not really in terrible shape there. You've got, you know, 5 outs and some bluffing equity on some turns. So, yeah. I guess I'll just leave it there after that thought. I'll play one more hand. I'll play my cutoff. And then I'll see you guys next week. Oh, we're going to win this one. No matter what. I'm going to get stacked. I'm going to win this hand or get stacked. Famous last words. I don't know if you guys have ever done that. Done that a lot. If I'm willing to invest my whole stack to win this blind, I must, like, I'm gonna win the pot. Oh, it's happening. Oh, and he dunks. $4. $4. You know what? I do not support your terrorism here. Get down we go. I raise. Yeah, that's what it's about. Okay. So, as you can see, get down Joe. Hugely exploitable min bet there. Raises min bets. You can see he has air, always. No, I've never seen him do that. It was probably a misclick, actually. He did it very quickly. But I'm going to go now. So, tune in next week, where I'll probably be playing on full tilt, where people bluff more. Either that, or maybe I'll 12 table while Donk Predator is playing, just to kind of tilt him. That would be pretty funny. Either way, it's going to be a blast, so tune in next week and leave some comments about hands you'd like me to talk about, or whatever.